late nights, motorcycles, pills, and danger. In this episode, we follow the tale of a reckless youth with a passion for speed. His adventures lead him into some nasty spills, chrome-plated thrills, and a little boy with ills. Do sounds and imagination have the power to make toy vehicles move? Is it possible that the hero of the story gave his new friend hantavirus? Would seeing a mouse on a motorcycle be enough to turn someone in for a psychiatric evaluation? One thing is for sure. The life of a mouse is full of dangers that make them grow up quickly. Well, that and their average lifespan of about 2 years. We're talking about The Mouse and the Motorcycle on ReLiterated, the podcast that stays crunchy even in milk. Welcome to ReLiterated, the lowbrow book club of three grown-ass men reading the children's books popular in the 1990s, but with 2020's hindsight. Fair warning, we use language too mature for kids, analysis too immature for literary scholars, and ignorance too profound to be inoffensive to everyone. You can interact with us and enjoy all kinds of bonus content by searching ReLiterated on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, or YouTube. Or you can ask us questions, suggest future episodes, or tell us what we've missed by sending us an email at reliterated@gmail.com. Make it a good question and we'll answer it on the show. My name's Andy, and I'm a turtle in a tow truck. And with me are my co-hosts.
I am Harold, and I am a chipmunk in a Tonka excavator.
And I'm Josh, and I'm a buffalo in a bobsled.
That is an image.
That is an image.
Hey,
buffalo on a bobsled.
You wanted a good image, so I gave you one.
It didn't occur to me right away, and I'm just like imagining it now, leaning as it goes down the bobsled tube.
Got his helmet on with his horns coming up, like curving up around the helmet.
Right.
That's what I saw in my head.
Now, is it just one buffalo, or is this the 4-man bobsled with 4 buffalo?
I just imagined the one, but oh man, that the 4 is even more hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man.
A 4 buffalo bobsled.
I absolutely went with practicality. I imagined a chipmunk loving having an excavator to dig its little holes and bury its nuts.
Well, this week we are back to book discussions, and we are kicking off this next chapter of podcast episodes. We're doing all books written by women. And the first one of this segment of our show, we're going to be doing The Mouse and the Motorcycle by Beverly Cleary, published in 1965.
Yes, Beverly Cleary was not a piece of shit. She was a wonderful human being.
She was a class act.
She was one of America's most successful authors. She had 91 million copies of her books, which have been sold worldwide since she was first published, which was in 1950. So she had a very, very long career. And of course, we know about Ralphus Mouse, but she also had Ramona Quimby, Beezus Quimby, Henry Huggins, and his dog Risby as well, are also famous book series that she did. Now, do you know if she won the Newbery Award?
She did. She won a Newbery Medal for, I'm trying to think of it without seeing, I knew which book it was.
It's Dear Mr. Henshaw.
Henshaw, yes.
Correct. And yeah, she was active from 1950 to 1999.
Wow. I know that when she passed away recently, she was 104 years old. That is quite the life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
18 days from her 105th birthday.
Wow. A very storied life indeed.
Yeah. She actually, when she was a child, she didn't actually enjoy reading. She was put into a lower reading skill level until she got a little bit older and was able to overcome that when she was younger. And when she was in school, she would write, and her teachers actually suggested that she become a full-time writer for children's when she got older. And so that was actually something that she did end up pursuing. She was a children's librarian in Yakima, Washington, which is where she grew up, until 1940. And then she went to the U.S. Army Hospital to work at their library during the war. And then while she was a librarian, she would try to help the patrons and the kids find books that they could identify with, and she actually struggled finding that. And that is one of the reasons she decided to become a writer. She said, "I believe in that missionary spirit among children's librarians. Kids deserve books of literary quality, and librarians are so important in encouraging them to read and selecting books that are appropriate."
And she just had a heart for kids and literacy and helping kids read. That's great. I love her background. And my mom's a librarian, and it's obviously her story resonates pretty well with me. So, yeah, Beverly Cleary, class act lady.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that Mouse and the Motorcycle, this book in particular, is one that resonates with a lot of people. I mean, most of us probably saw the movie when we were kids. I don't know if everyone read the book. I can't remember if I read the book, but even in reading it now, it was a good book. It was fun. It's engaging, and I could see why it would be fun for kids. In the questions at the back of the book, they actually asked her what her inspiration was for this book, and apparently it was really close to what happened. Her son, they went to visit a hotel. Her son had a fever, and the whole time he was there, he was playing with his toy vehicles on the bed and using the lines on the sheets for roads. And then when they got back from the hotel, her neighbor had caught a mouse and wanted to show her the mouse because she thought it was so cute. And all she could imagine was the mouse riding around on her son's toy motorcycle.
That is a great inspiration for a book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously.
One other thing I wanted to note was that she won so many awards, and she's been known as this great thing. But the awards that she liked the most were the awards that were voted for by the children, by the people who read her books. Those are the ones she actually cared the most about. They're like these little statewide awards, but those are the ones she liked because those are the ones that children were voting for. So I just thought that was a fun little note that they put on here. So
I love that.
It fits with her character for sure.
Yeah, she's all about the kids, and I just think that's great. So, yep, wonderful woman, long career. And yeah, I think that we're better for it.
Indeed. I do remember reading the book as a kid, as well as seeing the movie with the stop motion animation mice in it. Some of the scenes I can still picture in my head as I was reading the book again, envisioning just the movie that I watched way back when. I'll have to dig that up on YouTube. Hopefully it's up there somewhere. I'm sure it is. YouTube has everything.
It's actually on Amazon. I know that for a fact.
Is it?
Oh, nice.
I watched it because I wanted to watch it again. It was
good. Did you watch it ahead of this podcast recording?
Yes, I did. I watched it earlier this week. I watched it because it's actually a really short movie. The movie itself is not very long, but is
it on Prime?
It's on Prime. Yes.
Oh, good, cool. All right, don't have to pay anything extra for it. Haha.
So yeah, go ahead and watch it. I read the book when I was young. I remember reading it, and I think I read it more than once because I enjoyed it. At the time, I was very into motorcycles and wanting to drive vehicles and things like that.
It is an easy, fun read. So yeah, I can imagine that I would have read it multiple times as well.
So yeah, and going back and watching the movie, it's
Does it hold up?
I'll let you make your decision on that. I still enjoyed it. But it was not exactly as I remembered it. I could still watch it again, but it definitely shows its age. It definitely, you can tell it was made in the 80s for sure.
Maybe it can be a discussion point on our Chapter 2 talk show.
Oh, for sure.
And I mean, realistically, there's got to be some expectation when we're looking back at old movies like that. I mean, some people are really into watching old black and white movies. I cannot stand them. Someone will bring up some movie to be like, oh, have you ever seen this movie with Marilyn Monroe or this movie with so-and-so? Oh, it's one of my favorites. And we'll start watching it. And I'm like,
Katharine Hepburn is my idol.
Oh, yeah. And I'll be watching it. And I'm like, this is offensive to my brain. I don't want to watch it. I can't watch it. And mainly it's just because I don't relate to anything going on there. But Mouse and the Motorcycle, I think, would be a little bit more relatable, seeing as though it was made in the 80s. I have clear memories of certain scenes as well from the movie. So this book, though, begins with a boy and his mother and father pulling into a hotel called the Mountain View Inn, which happens to be where Ralph and his family reside, Ralph being the titular mouse.
Just a beat-up old hotel in the middle of nowhere that's, like several miles away from the well-trafficked interstate.
Yeah, it takes place actually kind of near where I live, because it's in the Sierra Valley foothills, and I live in the Sierra Nevada Valley because
Really?
that's where Sacramento is. And if you look at the actual highway, it says Highway 40, and at one point they talk about how they might bring this hotel, they might have to tear down the hotel because they might be putting in this new road. That road is probably Interstate 80, which goes all the way from California all the way clear across the country. I used Interstate 80 when I moved out here. So I believe that is definitely the road that they were talking about when they talk about that.
So R.I.P. Mountain View Inn.
Yeah, it's probably long gone at this point.
It's probably demolished. The mice all scattered to the winds.
I mean, at this point, Ralph's dead. Let's be real.
1965.
Yeah, he's long dead. So they're helped up to their room by a bellboy named Matt, who's 60 years old. Worked for the hotel most of his life, as they say it. And this kid is pretty excited about being there, but mom and dad, they're just tired of being on the road. Dad's been driving through the sun for hours and hours, and he doesn't want to drive a single mile further.
I will admit, drivers in California are very aggressive when they are driving, and they are also not great at driving. So I could definitely, when they were like, that truck almost ran me off the road, I was like, yeah, that sounds typical.
Yeah, I could believe that. And there's a fucking lot of drivers out there too, huh?
Right. Well, and I believe that because when you go just down to Lansing here in Michigan, Lansing or Detroit, the drivers in those bigger cities here it's as if they don't live in Michigan or something. They're from somewhere else, because it is.
I hate how people drive around Detroit.
Oh, it's terrible.
On the freeways.
Yeah, defensive driving my ass. It's offensive driving.
Yeah, I'm offended.
Yeah, right?
I don't know how people get around that city. But I guess it takes living there to get used to it. But man, just even in gridlock traffic, people are going above the speed limit, weaving in and out, and just anxiety, white knuckle gripping the steering wheel, just trying to get to where I'm going.
Yeah, I just want to be there. I don't want to be here anymore.
Where can I pay $30 to park this thing so I'm not driving anymore?
Right.
Seems like it wasn't even $30 to stay at that inn. I mean, they're paying Matt with coins. It's like, seriously?
Well, it is 1965 though. Coins were more valuable back then.
That's true.
This is at a time when the dollar was actually worth something, and being paid a little bit was enough to get yourself by. And now we make essentially just a little bit more than that wage, and everything is 10 times as expensive. So now when they get there, mom is positive that there's mice in this hotel because it's a really old hotel. It's not anything new. All the new ones were taken up. This is a holiday weekend that they've pulled in at this hotel. So they're knowing they're going to have to stay there for a little while. They're not going to be making it anywhere else for a minute.
Yeah, I totally relate to the dad.
Yeah, I totally,
By the way.
Absolutely.
I did not want to be driving around when there's so many people. I'm staying at this remote hotel for a few days just to get my sanity back.
For sure.
So I think the parents are pretty realistically characterized here.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
agree, but I feel like Mrs. Gridley is almost a little bit stuck up. Like she feels like she's too good for this little hotel, this kind of rundown hotel. Lady, you're from Ohio.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, your entire state is a shit show.
Yeah, let's be real. People from Ohio don't have any right to complain about anything.
Yeah, this is Buckingham Palace as far as you're concerned.
Right.
And, they got the good room. They got the twin beds, and so there better not be any fucking going on right now.
Right?
Don't you put those beds together.
Not in this hotel. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. I mean, I think it was cool how the kid got his own room. I'm like, damn, I never remember going to a hotel and getting my own room. It was always sharing a room. That was pretty neat. So she is worried about mice, and she is right to be worried. There are definitely mice here. There's a family of mice that has lived there for generations, actually. Keith, the young boy, he is kind of cool with the idea of mice. I mean, I can imagine you would be when you're a kid. I know that if I saw mice now, I'd be like, oh, need to get rid of them. But if I was a kid and I saw a mouse, I'd be like, holy crap, there's a mouse. It's awesome.
It's a little friend to play with.
Yep. Which the book has like an interesting way that it does it with the mice, where kind of like Charlotte's Web, where Fern could understand the animals. Keith is able to actually talk with the mouse when he meets him. They are able to speak the same language, essentially, like kids listen harder or something.
Right. And later on, we find out that Matt, the old employee at the hotel, can understand him too.
Yeah.
And speak with him.
Like he never lost that.
We'll touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think he just listens hard enough. You know, he's a little older. He can take the time to listen, and so he's able to hear.
I don't know if it's a matter of being older as much as it is like you never lose your youthful spirit, and you're still able to commune with all the little friends.
Well, it did say that he occasionally had to stop children from hitting each other with croquet mallets, so he's definitely got that kid spirit in him still.
Right.
So.
So the kids are hitting each other, and he has to stop them with the mallets.
Yeah, he has to stop them with the croquet mallets. That sounds reasonable.
He picks up a mallet and threatens the kids to stop hitting each other.
You better fucking stop it now! I'm gonna tell my mom. Not if you got a broken jaw, bitch.
Go ahead and tell your mom. I don't care. I'll kick you out of my hotel.
Yeah. So there's a knot hole in Keith's room. He pokes his finger in it, not thinking anything of it, you know. And when he opens his suitcase, the first things he pulls out are an apple and then some cars and a red motorcycle. He puts it all down on his bedspread and he eats the apple, then starts messing around with the cars. And he makes specific noises for each of the vehicles. There was a vroom vroom for the sports car, a wee wee for the ambulance, and a for the motorcycle.
That's quite good.
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's all try to do our own motorcycle sounds.
How did the sound play out in your head?
So, like, for me, it was like, because in my head, that's what it sounds like. So.
That's a lot of V's, though. They spelled it out, PB-PB-BB.
Is more of a...
It's like a puttering type of sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's the lips.
You gotta vibrate the lips.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it is.
We're just gonna spend this whole episode making sounds.
I'm not gonna do it because it makes my lips feel funny.
I like the way it makes my lips feel. I might use that as a new move.
Hey, honey, want to try something?
Yeah, I got an idea, baby.
What are you doing? Driving a motorcycle.
I call this the motorcycle.
Anyways, sound effects for making vehicles go.
Yep. All of this was being watched by a curious little mouse named Ralph. He's hearing him drive around the cars, and he's excited because there's a kid in this room. And anytime there's kids in the room, it means that there's more crumbs or pieces of food that the family can find and eat. So he doesn't like the fact that it's an older boy, though, because younger kids are more likely to drop crumbs, whereas older kids tend to know how to use the wastebasket and clean up after themselves. He even describes it as them not being considerate enough to leave crumbs on the floor.
But what lacked in quantity, there was quality, because he said that they could always find like a candy wrapper on the floor, or in this case, an apple core.
Yes, an apple core that ended up into the wastebasket, but they were all upset because the wastebasket is a danger zone for mice. You can't get in there and then get out.
Yeah, who was it that was ended by was it Uncle Victor that jumped into the
Yeah, it was one of the uncles, Uncle Victor or something, that fell into the wastebasket and got caught by the housekeeping.
Yep, Uncle Victor was emptied into an incinerator.
Ooh, man, that's a way to go.
And met his end. If these mice live in constant danger, like what an existence. You live in a place where you have a roof over your head, but there's so many dangers just lurking around, and you can't live outside because there's owls.
Right.
That's their motivation for staying inside. Like, the food is not exactly plentiful in the hotel, and it's getting more scarce because there's fewer people staying than you used to be. But they still don't feel safe in living out in nature because of the owls.
Which is a good fear to have for a mouse.
It'd be terrifying.
Right.
However, you keep your burrows intact and you stay underground as good as you can. You can probably survive outside fairly well.
You change it
mice
up.
do it all the time.
Run around in the day instead of the night. Well, then there's hawks.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But they have the relative comfort and security of living inside the hotel. It's got its own dangers, but it's fairly decent living, I would think, for a mouse.
Ralph is extremely stuck on the motorcycle, though. He's not so worried about the food. I mean, he wants food, but this motorcycle has caught his attention, and it is something that is making him forget how hungry he is.
And he's daydreaming about adventure and freedom and the wind in his whiskers. This is his I want moment, his where we're exposed to the things that he dreams about, things that he strives for.
And we also learn about some of those dangers that they come across. They mention that Ralph's father tried to carry an aspirin tablet back to the mouse hole in his cheek, and it dissolved and ended up poisoning him. So aspirin is poisonous to mice, something that they can't have, which will matter later.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why it's poisonous, I found out that a single dose of bare extra strength aspirin contains 500 milligrams of, I'm just going to spell this word, ACETYLSALICYLIC acid, which is enough to kill an average sized rat.
It's acetylsilic acid.
Acetylsilic acid.
Acetylsilic acid.
You don't remember in Ghostbusters when, oh man, now I can't remember his name. Rick Moranis' character is telling everybody that instead of buying aspirin, he just gets the generic acetylsalicylic acid, whatever. Now I can't say it.
Right.
Because he saves money on it. I'll never forget.
I remember it now because he trapped himself out of his own apartment, but
yeah.
When I was reading it, no.
God, why can't I remember his name either? I had the movie on just last week.
Yeah, all of a sudden I can't remember his character's name.
The Keymaster.
Yep.
Rick Moranis. I know people listening to this podcast right now are screaming at us. Oh my
God, it's this name. And I hate that because I can't tell you. I would say out of all the movies I've seen, I know that there were about 2 summers where I watched Ghostbusters at least once per day. So there's no reason I should be forgetting this name right now.
Lewis Tully.
Lewis Tully.
Lewis Tully.
I could remember the Tully part. I couldn't remember the Lewis, and I was like, I don't want to say it until I got the full name.
Yeah. Lewis Tully. Okay.
We got there.
We
got
did
there,
it.
everybody.
We managed.
It took a quick Bing search, but we got it.
Bing it.
You Bing it.
You gotta Bing it.
You get the Microsoft rewards.
So Ralph does end up not paying attention to what his mother says. He climbs up the telephone line. He gets up on the dresser after the kid has left the room with his parents. They're going out to explore the area, and he starts molesting this motorcycle. He is running his hands along it, and he's just imagining it, and he gets on it, and he can't figure out how to get it to go, though.
Just rubbing his hands up on them curves.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling the shaft.
He takes a moment to finally start rolling it with his feet, kind of like how you'd move a bike by stepping on the ground, and
work that clutch.
Loses his balance, and him and the motorcycle tumble right into the metal wastebasket.
Oh no, just like Uncle Victor.
Just like Uncle Victor. There is no way for him to get out because it's a cleaned out wastebasket. The only other thing in there is an apple core.
Yeah, and if it had a bag in it, you could probably use the bag to climb up, but nope, just a metal bin. Nothing to grab onto.
And I noticed at this part of the book, just because I'm an adult, now I'm noticing it, I was like, this book has a little bit of filler in it. Because I checked, there was 4 pages just about being stuck in the wastebasket.
Yeah, there's a lot of filler to it.
Yeah, I was just like, there's a lot.
He ends up eating some of the apple. He falls back to sleep. Keith comes in and notices him in there. And luckily, Keith is not in a hurry to try and kill him or anything like that. He actually is glad that the mouse is in there. But as a boy might do, he doesn't immediately let Ralph out of there. He has caught a mouse. And of course, he doesn't want his mom to find it, but he isn't just going to tip him right out and let him go. So Ralph is kind of being indignant with him about this. Like, come on, dude, let me out. The kid's like, hold on a second. Wait, I'm going to keep talking to you. This is fun.
Yeah, he's got a captive audience. He was daydreaming about meeting a mouse and making friends with mice earlier, and a mouse can't run away, so he can talk to one. And if I found a small animal talking to me all of a sudden, I'd be like, no, don't run away. I want this is pretty cool. This is crazy.
This is insanity.
But if a mouse was talking to me the way Ralph was talking, I don't know if I'd want to be friends with him. He's kind of a dick. He calls Keith stupid, and Keith is just trying to be a nice... He's like, hey, I got a new friend. And Ralph's like, I'm not your friend.
I don't even like you.
This sucks.
I'm just not drunk, he said. So
I don't like you. I just want your motorcycle. Ugh.
Right, but I mean, he's scared. He's stuck in a wastebasket. He just wants to get out. I mean, this part gave me anxiety.
It's a high-stress situation.
Yeah. Reading this gave me anxiety. I mean, you call it filler. I call it, if it didn't have these pages, this wouldn't be a book. It would just be a short children's story.
Short story.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it has to have this stuff.
We need some time to get in the mindset of this little mouse, because he lost a relative to this very fate.
Right, absolutely. You know? But he does eventually get let out of the wastebasket, and Keith is even willing to let him ride the motorcycle around, and he gives him the secret code, which is making the sound. And so Ralph gets on it, and he goes to take off, and it goes a little faster than he expected, and he starts to get the hang of it, and he starts cruising around. And at this point, it's getting kind of late at night, and Keith has got to go to bed. And Ralph just really wants to ride the motorcycle out in the hallway where he can really, really kick it into gear, get some speed up. And since everybody's going to be asleep, can't hurt anyone. So yeah, Keith finally thinks it's okay. He's down with letting him do that.
Keith envies Ralph for being able to actually ride the motorcycle.
Right, because he's got to be an adult before he can ride one, and even then, he thinks his mom won't let him.
Mm-hmm. And here's this little mouse riding his toy motorcycle right now.
Right. Which is cool. I mean, it would be cool to just be able to jump on. The idea that he's jumping onto a fake motorcycle that clearly has no motor, and all he has to do is make noise, and this thing drives around. I mean, that's pretty sweet.
Right. This is what's bothering me. Because where does the magic come from? Like, this is magic, right? This toy, it's detailed and intricate enough that it has like working handbrakes and the engine and everything. So it's a working vehicle, but Keith knows how to make it run. And then by extension, Ralph can make it run. And not just that, but later on, the toy ambulance.
Right.
And so is this like I don't know. It's either the toys are magic, these specific toys, or like they have a magic ability to make these toys run with their imagination or something.
Yeah, it's like the power of imagination or the power of belief. I believe this is going to work, so it does.
What I think it is it's the magic of the sounds, because they use magic and they're able to talk to each other even though they're different species. And he's able to use the sound to make the motorcycle go. So I think it's the sound. The magic's in the sound. But that's just my theory.
Yeah, I mean, the sound definitely creates the movement of the motorcycle, but I think it's more just the magic of the imagination of the motorcycle being ridden by this mouse. I think it's just supposed to be the power of imagination.
Yeah, because it does transfer to other vehicles.
Yep.
But he has to make the sound.
They do have to be specific sounds. Yes,
that's
you're
why
right.
I think it's the magic of the sound.
Well, I'll go out and I'll try that on my motorcycle later.
Okay.
See if I can save on gas.
Right. Let's get in my van and go.
So
but I gotta make that. I gotta make that clunking noise every so often, though.
I pull up to some intersection, and I'm just like, people are looking at me like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And then just go.
You just look over with a smug look on your face, and little cocky salute, and right on.
It reminds me of that South Park episode where all the bikers were like, they're sitting in the library and they're like the whole time.
So I wonder if you could like go to the Air and Space Museum, climb in like a fighter jet.
Oh man, when I was at NASA, I should have gotten to the space shuttle when I was at NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This whole podcast is just degraded into a whole set of loud vehicle noises. And we apologize. I am sorry, dear listeners. You're going to get a lot more of this but before this episode is done. But I apologize in advance, but sorry, not sorry.
Right.
That's it's necessary for the magic to happen.
It has to go like this.
This is the way.
So that first night, though, Ralph rides around on the motorcycle. He goes all over the halls. He considers going downstairs, but he knows he can't go down the stairs. He's afraid of using the elevator. He wakes up a terrier in one of the rooms, and the owner takes the dog outside. And I think he does actually get in the elevator at this point and ride it downstairs and hide behind an ashtray.
No, he
hid behind the ashtray. He hid behind the ashtray on the second floor.
Correct.
Yeah.
He's never gone to the ground floor. It's this mythical place, this magical place that he's never been to because he's not old enough to go downstairs yet.
Yeah,
his mom doesn't.
Far too
doesn't
dangerous for a
him.
little mouse.
Yep.
But there's a lot of good imagery here with the smells because they talk about the cinnamon buns and things like that that waft up from the ground floor, and he's just, I've never been there. I've never been there because he's still a kid and he's not allowed yet. I find it funny that he drives by his Aunt Sissy and he's just like, she's probably jealous. My guess is that she's like, what the fuck? Did I see my nephew on a motorcycle?
Yep. Flying by. This is weird. He does end up riding all night long. He never takes the car back or the bike back in time, and the wind blew closed the door to room 215, which is where Keith was staying. So now he's stuck outside and he's trying to pound on the door with his little mouse fist, but there's just no way Keith's going to hear him. And he is discovered at this moment. But who discovers him? It is Matt, the bellboy, who we find out can also talk to mice.
Yep, Matt is one of those magic adults in the children's tales that they speak the language of kids and they speak the language of talking animals.
Or he's a metahuman.
He could be.
But he kind of reminds me of the old man from the beginning of James and the Giant Peach, where he's just an old guy with a twinkle in his eye and in cahoots with the main character, so to speak, or sets off their adventure or whatever. But I don't think, does Matt appear in the book after this point when he lets Ralph back in?
He does.
Oh, yeah.
He appears later.
He appears at the end. He's the one that finds the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, he does come back and, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, he even goes on to say, mention that, why would he take the time to get rid of mice when other mice are just going to move in and these mice seem nice enough, so...
He's friend to mice.
Yeah, you're just always going to be killing mice, so who cares? Why don't we just let the ones that have lived here for generations live here?
Mm-hmm. He seems to have some pull at this hotel, too. Like, I don't know. If he's not the owner, then he's... I don't know, maybe it's his family's establishment.
It does say that he's been there... forever, it seems like.
Yeah.
And he seems like the kind of the everyman around. He does he's a handyman, he does a bellboy, he wears lots of hats, so it's very possible that it is his
He
his
attacks kids with
establishment.
croquet mallets.
Yeah, he attacks kids with croquet
he stops them
mallets.
from attacking each other, but I could see him using one to stop them both. It's like, you must defeat me.
I challenge you to trial by combat.
This actually brings up a funny point where Ralph finally gets let back into the room, and he drives past just as Mom opens the door and walks into Keith's room, and she starts screaming that there was a mouse driving a motorcycle across the room, which has everybody basically...
Oh, Mom.
Yeah. Keith knows that it's true, but Dad is definitely like, what the hell are you talking about? I think we were driving too long.
Yeah, my mother is just as petrified of mice as this woman is. So I could definitely see her like, no, I saw it. It was on a motorcycle. I'm not lying. It definitely was on a motorcycle.
Sure it was. Cuckoo.
Yeah, my mom's really terrible about mice too.
I mean, I'm not necessarily terrified of mice, but I know that a couple of years ago when we had that super cold winter here, I was going to the bathroom one night and I looked down and I'm like, what the hell? And there was a mouse on the bathroom floor, and I'm like, ah. And you don't want them in your house, so I actually woke Shyla up. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, if you come out and I'm not here, it's because I went to Meijer's. I'm getting mouse traps, and 1:30 in the morning went to Meijer's, bought a bunch of mouse traps, and put them all over the house, and took care of it. I got rid of them, but yeah, it's not something you want in your house. I mean, there's a lot of reasons not to want mice. They carry disease, they poop all over, they get into places, chew up wires. You definitely don't want them.
You lose your motorcycles.
Yeah, you lose your motorcycles. They drive your toys around. I mean, imagine if a mouse is in your house and it gets a hold of a G.I. Joe gun. That's dangerous for everybody.
If it knows how to make the sound of a G.I. Joe gun, you could potentially get hurt.
Yeah,
I don't know what those bullets could do. They're real small.
Do guns become like real and working weapons too in the hands of a magic mouse?
What if he gets a hold of like a G.I. Joe missile launcher?
Oh my gosh!
I mean, maybe maybe a gun wouldn't be so bad, but if he gets a hold of a missile launcher or one of the G.I. Joe vehicles, I mean, I had some pretty cool G.I. Joe vehicles that had quite a few rockets on them.
Right? Sets up camp in like your G.I. Joe headquarters playset and starts like launches a nuclear strike or something. That could be the end of us all.
If there's anyone under 30-something listening to this, they're like, what the fuck is a G.I. Joe? Essentially, the only entertainment I had as a kid is what they are. Shut up.
So anyways, that is a close call for Ralph.
Yep. And Ralph ends up hiding the motorcycle under the bed, and then he is able to sneak back to the knot hole that Keith had stuck his finger through. And after they calm Mom down and assure her there was not a mouse, in fact, riding a motorcycle around, she tells everybody to get ready for breakfast, and Keith wants to bring him some breakfast. And he asks where Ralph lives, and he says he lives in the mouse hole. And Keith laughs. He says, no kidding, Keith laughed. That's the hole I poked my finger in last night. And Ralph says, I'll say you did. Scared the shit out of me.
I know.
No, he didn't say that, but scared the ever-living shit out of me. And I was amazed about that because it's a children's book. But yeah, he requests a peanut butter sandwich for breakfast. And Ralph's mom just does not believe that this is the case. She has no way of believing that this kid is going to bring a sandwich back and bring them room service, because mice don't get room service.
I found it funny because they were talking about Ralph's father at this point, and I was like, oh, he's using idioms, just like people use. Because they use the, not every mouse is timid. Just because they say that we are, it doesn't mean it. And I was just like, that's interesting that, mice use the same type of language as us as well.
Yeah, it's almost as if it was written by a human.
Yeah, it's weird.
Also, I think on that note, I'm not sure where it is, but they talk about the dust mice underneath Keith's bed, and Ralph takes it as a slur.
Yeah.
But then later on,
for sure.
he uses that as the term. So I was just like, why were you offended?
But outside of this book, I mean, I've only heard them referred to as dust bunnies, not dust mice.
Yeah, I've never heard dust mice before. It might have been an older saying, but it doesn't seem like it. I mean, we're fairly old at this point, and 1965 isn't too far gone from when we were born, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more regional.
Yeah, could be.
Like, we say pop, but when I'm out here and I say pop, people are like, what? And then I have to say soda, because then they understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then you're like...
You mean like soda, man?
Get on the fucking internet. Everybody knows that we call it pop over here. Just like we know you call it soda. Don't pretend like you don't fucking know.
Yeah. I've been to restaurants. I'm like, what kind of pop do you have? They're like, what? I'm like, soda. What kind of soda do you have?
Talking about.
I honestly don't think the younger ones do. I honestly don't.
Maybe they don't, I guess.
But
I don't know. I don't live
okay.
there. Ralph is feeling like he's getting old, though. He's getting too old to be hanging out or at home and stuff. And Mom is getting upset because he's associating with a kid. Again, she doesn't believe that this peanut butter sandwich is coming. Ralph is like, Mom, I'm growing up. I'm going to start growing to the ground floor. And I found it funny she warns him that there could be mouse traps, cats, or poison. But as far as cats go, why wouldn't there be cats on the second floor? Because from what I know about cats, they go wherever the fuck they want to go.
Especially if you don't want them there.
Especially if you don't want them there. Everyone has heard but may not realize that they're hearing my cat purring because he really likes to come right next to the mic as soon as I start recording.
They know the most inconvenient places to be.
Yep. It's almost impossible to stop him. But mouse traps and poison, I mean, you'd think they'd put that on the second floor too, but maybe not. Maybe they think that mice are only on the first floor. She's warning him about owls, and as they're sitting there going on, arguing back and forth, Keith walks back in the room and whispers into the hole and starts shoving pieces of peanut butter sandwich in there, which Mom is now like, whoa, sweet.
This is the best thing ever.
Right?
Yeah, but just before this, she was talking... Ralph's mom is basically just being the mom, every mom. She doesn't want him to hang out with the wrong friends. Oh, is Keith a bad kid because he's a human?
Right.
Are you prejudiced against humans?
Man.
Well, humans do have the power to end them on a whim, so I'd be kind of resentful of them too.
And yeah, I'd be pretty prejudiced against that, I think. If one type of thing was constantly trying to kill
you?
Kind.
Yeah. Weird.
I would be pretty resentful of that.
Yeah, if certain things were killing a thing all the time, it seems like it'd be a problem that we should have addressed.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, just these creatures with the ability to end your life at a moment's notice and get away with it.
Yeah, strange.
Yeah.
Pause up, don't trap.
So basically they start this concept where as long as Keith is there, he's going to be bringing food to the mouse hole. And Mom actually starts talking about how we need to tip room service. Like, we can't just be letting him bring us food without tipping him, which I thought was funny. Their concept, their understanding of what's going on.
A note about the sandwich, though. Like, Ralph had asked for a peanut butter sandwich, but Keith came back with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And Ralph's mom noted it even has butter in it. Have you ever made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on buttered bread?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. That's the only way to make it.
Yeah, dude.
Really?
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
that was a thing. I'm going to try that.
Oh,
What?
Man. Yeah, no, that's definitely good.
Huh.
Andy, here's the trick. You toast it. Toast it, put melted butter on. That way it melts into the bread. Then you put on the stuff. Oh,
But that's just breakfast toast. No, if you can eat without toasted, it's really good to have like peanut butter,
toasted.
butter, and jelly. It's definitely good. When I was a kid, my grandparents, they would have jelly, but they would make me a peanut butter and butter sandwich. And I mean,
we
they
had
were
those
good.
too.
Yeah, they were good, but it was never as good as peanut butter and jelly. I don't know what they were so stingy about the jelly for.
I remember requesting peanut butter and butter sandwiches. I like them. So
Yeah, they're not bad.
Usually when I make PB&J, though, I'm like just looking for a quick snack, a quick sandwich. So I just slap the peanut butter on there, slap the jelly on, and get to munching. But I will have to take that extra step of buttering my bread first.
Yeah, it's
That
good.
sounds pretty good.
It is good.
Nice. Okay. Gourmet snacks. here on ReLiterated.
You can tell we are from the upper echelon of society.
Oh, yes.
Well, so Keith's mom, Mrs. Gridley, has let the housekeeping know that she spotted a mouse. And so the head housekeeper is on high alert, and she is basically coming down on the maids because they haven't been cleaning under the beds, and they just haven't been doing a good enough job to keep mice out of there. And at the same time, Ralph, he is obsessing over the motorcycle, and even though he promised Keith that he would only ride it at night, he came out and went under the bed to just look at it, just sit on it. He didn't want to ride it. I mean, you know how it is. You go out, you just look at it, and you're just, oh, it's cool. I'm not going to touch it, though. I'm not going to do nothing. You know that's always a bad move, though.
So the motorcycle is under the bed. Why again? Was it because
so that Ralph could access it, so that Ralph could look at it. I mean, Keith agreed to let him look at the motorcycle and play with it, but he just couldn't drive it.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Because, the motorcycle is there under the bed when the maid is coming in, and Ralph becomes afraid that the maid is going to suck up the motorcycle with the vacuum cleaner.
Yep. Well, that's his excuse, at least.
Right, because I don't think any vacuum attachment is going to suck up a toy motorcycle big enough for, I don't know. I guess it depends on the size of the motorcycle, but...
Right. Oh, maybe like...
The vacuum attachments I'm used to aren't going to really suck up a toy like that and you don't notice.
Right, maybe like a Craftsman shop vac, but not, not a regular vacuum you'd be using in a hotel.
Mm-hmm. See, I thought because it was a hotel, they would have an industrial-style vacuum in order to do a better job of the cleaning. So I thought it might actually have more power to it.
It might have more power, but the tube is still only going to be like an inch to an inch and a half wide.
No, that's true.
I mean, it's like I'm saying, when I think of a shop vac, I'm thinking that thing's got like an almost 3-inch wide hose.
Oh, yeah, that thing's huge.
Yeah. But as she's going around, she starts to vacuum, and she ends up sticking the vacuum hose under the bed, and it is just about to suck Ralph right into the vacuum. But he was able to grab onto the motorcycle.
It's because she's not paying attention.
She stops paying attention. At first, she
stops paying attention, yeah.
Yep, and then she lets go of it and just leaves it running while she sings in the mirror to herself.
An old Irish song about marriage. It's called Paper of Pins, and I listened to it. It's a very interesting listen.
Oh, you looked it up?
I'll post it on, I'll put it up on the Reddit so you can hear it. But I think it's funny because they keep bringing up this housekeeper and how she keeps meeting up with this boy all the time. So you do realize what's happening, right?
And one of the bus boys.
It's a summer fling. That maid is fucking.
Yeah, she is.
So yeah, that's what she's thinking about. She's not thinking about cleaning up anything. She's thinking about getting dirty.
She's busy getting dirty. And this actually had, in my version of it, I don't know what you guys had, but this had a pretty good illustration of Ralph holding on to the back of the motorcycle being sucked into the vacuum tube.
Yeah, I have the same one.
Yep. And he ends up pulling himself up onto it, and the only way to get away is he had to make the sound. He had to drive the motorcycle.
It was for science,
right?
Harold. For science.
The way he rationalizes it is he wants to make sure that the engine is powerful enough to withstand the suction of from a vacuum cleaner.
It makes sense.
Which was more powerful? Because he was horned up by the power of the vacuum engine too. Remember, he was scared, but he was just like he was kind of turned on by it. He was like, "This is pretty powerful. I like this." So
yeah, this mouth is
that's why he
a
had
motorhead.
He had to try. He had to figure out which was more powerful: the vacuum, or the motorcycle.
Which I think it would be a better reasoning with Keith to say, I was trying to save the motorcycle from being sucked in by the vacuum, which would be the truth and not sound like a lame excuse.
Right. It was an experiment. Yeah, that sounds like an excuse.
I was doing science. No, the maid was distracted, was about to suck up the motorcycle. I had to move it or else she'd get it. That was the truth, and that would be totally excusable.
Yeah, absolutely sensible.
But kids don't always think that sensibly.
No, even today, Bruce tells me, he's like, "Dad, I need my backpack." And I'm like, "Why?" And he goes,
well, you know my 3 Lego guys? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, they're in my backpack. And I'm like, well, you're not supposed to take toys to school. How did they get in there? And he goes, they accidentally fell in there. And I had to explain to him after a minute. I'm like, so you realize that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, and I'm not upset that you necessarily took them to school because you didn't play with them at school. I know you didn't get in trouble. I'm like, what I'm upset about is that you're lying to me. And he's just staring at me with his mouth pursed, like shaking his head up and down, like, okay, I'm hearing you. Like your excuse is not very logical, buddy.
Oh man, the things kids come up with to try to sneak their way out of trouble.
Yep. I use it as opportunities to show them that people aren't so easily fooled.
Right? You gotta be clever. You gotta be creative. Don't come up with easy excuses.
Right. Now, the motorcycle does start to take off from the vacuum, but then the maid shuts it off, and he goes shooting out from under the bed and straight into the linens that were laying on the floor. He gets stuck in a pillowcase, and he can't find his way out of it. He gets stuck in there to the point where they pick up the sheets and the pillowcases, they put it in the hamper, and basically him and the motorcycle are trapped now. And this is where we find out that Ralph belongs to an old group of people. You know what? I don't want to go there. Let's go ahead and not do it. I was going to talk about how Ralph chews holes in these white linens. Which I would imagine being about the size of eye holes.
We did not want to besmirch the name of Beverly Cleary.
No, not
throwing
at all.
that in the mix.
I laughed about it with Josh the other night, but as I started to say it, I'm like, no, that's not. Everyone can pick up on where I was going.
Yeah, that's the only joke you need.
Yeah, let's leave it there.
No, those aren't mouse holes. Those are mine.
Imagine one of the maids picking up a pillowcase. It just as a customer comes out and it looks like it's got 2 eye holes in it. Oh my God, we need to get the hell out of here.
It's a Halloween costume. Yeah.
I was doing a ghost.
Now Bruce.
Yeah, and Bruce, listen.
You're not hanging out with the right people.
So this reminds me actually of a time when I was a kid. My friend Justin and I, Josh knows who I'm talking about. We had made these superhero costumes. My mom had these old sheets, okay, and I thought they were just old sheets. Later, I found out they were antique sheets, and she was actually pretty pissed off. Now, these sheets were white, and I did not consider anything about this, okay? And I took one sheet and I sewed it to a black ski mask so that it would be like a cape and cowl, like a mask with a cape on it, okay?
Sure,
and then the other one, we sewed it up to look like a coat. Now, these weren't, in no way did they look like actual like robes or anything like that. But we were just making these hero costumes, right? And we were like 13 or 14, and we actually one night ran around in them outside and then realized how stupid we must look and went back. Well, we stored them at Justin's house because my mom kind of made it clear that she's like, where the fuck are my sheets at? And I'm like, I don't know. Where'd you put them, Mom? You know? So we kept them at Justin's house, and then Justin's mom found them, and she was concerned that Justin and I were hanging out with the wrong people. So then we had to explain to her that no, we were trying to make superhero costumes, which actually sounded a lot crazier when we were explaining it to adults than it did when we were making them. Which, of course, my mom ended up getting informed that her sheets had been cut up and turned into these costumes, and she was not happy about that. But I didn't even consider it when I did that. It didn't even make any sense to me. But then after his mom said something, it was like, yeah, I can see that. I can see why it would look that way. Not a good idea to use white sheets to make anything out of.
I mean, in Peanuts comic strips all the time, you had like Charlie Brown dressing up as a ghost, just a sheet with eye holes cut in it.
Right.
Whenever it's a popular kind of thing in pop culture.
Yeah, but that's pretty, it's like round and it's just the sheet. This looked like an
This looks
outfit
more
that,
pointy.
Yeah. No, it didn't. Well, no, Justin's mask, you know those faceless masks you can get where it looks like it's a hood with the face blacked out? Yes.
Okay.
That was part of the one he had. And so again, wasn't even considered when we were doing it because we're like, haha, this is fun, blah, blah, blah. And then we realized that if somebody had seen us running around outside at night, it would have been very easy for them to assume we belonged to an organization we did not and would not belong to. So luckily we grew out of that one and we did not.
The Justice League.
Yeah. We're the good guys. What do you mean? Yeah, you think you're the good guys. So
Sure, that's what they all say.
right. Oh man. Like even thinking back on it, I'm like, we were fucking idiots. How obvious it was, when you think about it with hindsight.
So Ralph is trapped in the linens.
Yep, and he bites his way through the linens, and he has to leave the motorcycle behind, unfortunately. There's just no way for him to drag them out of there. He gets out of the laundry basket and shamefully runs back to his hole. But Keith is gone for the day with his parents, so he can't say anything right away. And he's basically just waiting for Keith to come back at this point because he's afraid to have to tell him.
But he knows he's going to have to fess up to it because he's a responsible little mouse. He's learning about responsibility and growing up.
Yep. You got to be responsible if you're going to ride a motorcycle. So they end up having a family reunion. Ralph's mother sets it up because all of a sudden they've got all this good food coming into the hole and they don't want to waste it and not share with the rest of the family. This leads to some of the younger mice asking to see the motorcycle and wanting to play on it. And of course, that's just digging more into Ralph's conscience because he's lost the motorcycle at this point. And
right. Not only that, like his family is so happy that they've got a room service arrangement for a couple days now, and he doesn't know how long that's going to go if and when Keith finds out about the motorcycle.
Oh, for sure.
It's an extra little pressure on him.
And to add insult to injury, not meaningfully adding an insult to the injury, but Keith has a gift for Ralph, and it is half a ping pong ball that he has taken the time to carefully make into a crash helmet so Ralph can actually ride the motorcycle safely.
I looked up what thistledown is, and it's little fluffy down that attach to thistle seeds so that they can spread. So it's that really soft fuzz. So it would be a really good crash helmet for a mouse.
Yeah, he lines the inside of the helmet with thistledown, hey?
So, yes. And during the family reunion, we meet a few different characters. We see the aunt again, Aunt Sissy, and we meet Uncle Lester and old Aunt Dorothy. But what I thought was great was that she did bring up the fact that the uncles were overweight, but she didn't carry on and on and on about the weight. It's as if it was just an afterthought.
Right.
Or just a one-time physical description.
Yeah, nothing about like a fat rubber ring around their neck or anything like that.
Bulging bellies.
Yeah, just said that they asked for seconds.
He had a healthy appetite.
Yeah. Again, Beverly Cleary, better person.
Right. And I mean, even with Keith here, he is upset that Ralph lost the motorcycle, and he tells him, maybe you weren't old enough to be trusted with a motorcycle, which hurts Ralph's feelings. But the next day he asks them what they want for room service again. And Keith is like, yeah, I'm mad, but I'm not so mad that I'm going to not give you the food that we were talking about.
The way he said it was more like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Right.
Which is worse, in my opinion.
It's a very grown-up thing to say. It makes you feel
just like, oh, so small and not worthy of anything.
Well, and he relates it to a story about learning a lesson. He's saying that Ralph learned a lesson here, and he talks about when he went down a hill on his bike for the first time, when he got a bike that had hand brakes instead of foot brakes.
and he wasn't thinking about it, and he went down a hill, and when he started going too fast, he tried to stop it by using the foot brake on the pedals, and it didn't work, and he ended up crashing his bike.
Fun fact, I had that almost exact experience, except for I didn't have any brakes. I went down this hill at the Woodlands when I was probably 8 or 9, and I tried to stop myself, and my brakes all of a sudden weren't working. I was pushing backwards. Nothing would stop. Nothing would stop me. I had to crash pretty hard so I wouldn't go into the lake. But
Josh, I'm glad you survived, but that fact doesn't sound very fun to me.
Nope.
Well, I guess it wouldn't be a fun fact. It's more of a horrifying thing that happened in my life, but
A traumatizing experience.
I lived through it, and it's okay because I lived through it, and I don't know if I'm better for it, but it happened. I learned not to go down a hill with a bike without brakes, so that's a lesson I learned.
Mm-hmm.
But then I did it again in Mackinac Island, so I guess I didn't really learn anything, did I?
You rode a bike with no brakes again?
Yeah, my bike didn't have brakes for like 3 years. I don't know why, but I think it was because I wanted to do sweet BMX tricks with it, but we just turned the brakes off and didn't install handbrakes like you're supposed to.
Yeah, you're supposed to put a gyro on it or something of that nature so that you can spin the handlebars around, but a lot of kids will just take their brakes off, which is not the best idea because you're more likely to get into an injury situation. But at the same time, I can relate because I know that my family couldn't afford to buy me a gyro for my BMX because they were like $130. It's a special kind of head where the handlebars connect to the frame. Then I definitely didn't have that. Yeah, it allows you to spin the handlebars without the cables for the brakes tying up.
Ah, I see.
It was the one thing I wanted for most of my childhood was that thing, and no one ever got me one, no matter how much I asked for it.
Do you have one now that you're a grown-ass adult?
I don't, man. They're fucking expensive. I ain't buying one of those. I still have...
You're a grown-ass adult with a family.
I still have that same BMX bike. It's a Mongoose Super Goose out in the garage. And I have not... I've thought about it, though. I will say that when I got it out and cleaned it all up and everything, and I was riding it around, I was like, I wonder how much a gyro is. And I looked it up, and they're like $80 to $100. I'm like, that's fucking expensive, man.
Well, it seems like they've come down in price at least.
Well, and I'm also 37, and if I tried to spin the handlebars on that bike, I'm pretty sure that I would break my neck. So at this age, I actually wear elbow pads, knee pads, and a helmet, and I never wore any of that stuff when I was a kid.
Oh, sure. But yeah, Keith's reaction to Ralph losing the motorcycle seems to be more like a healthy, mature anger response, tempered with empathy. So it's while he's upset and he's disappointed, he does come back from it pretty quickly, and Ralph and he are still friends.
Yep. And it's at this point that he actually talks about wanting to grow up, and without, I think, realizing that that is a grown-up thing to do. Something that even a lot of grown-ups won't do.
Right.
Why are you guys looking at me?
Can you feel the stares through the microphone? You know what you did.
Because you won't let go of us. You won't let go of us going back on a mulligan for that fucking ninja book.
I just wanted to bring up the fact I'm like, Keith, you don't want to grow up. It's not as great as you think. You have to pay bills and stuff. It's not fun.
But we all felt that, didn't we? I mean, when you were a kid, you wanted to grow up because it meant freedom. And then you grow up and you realize it doesn't mean freedom. It means everything but freedom, really.
Yeah.
You are locked into bills. You're locked into responsibility. Mm-hmm. You know, we talk about life and we're like, oh, everybody's, I want to go live my life. Well, do you really get to live your life? No, you have to find this job and you can't be anything without this job. And then you live your life for this job. And then by the time you're old enough to fucking stop working, you're too old to do any of the stuff that is living life. Yeah, being a grown-up fucking sucks. I wish I would have paid more attention when I was a child to how great it was to be a child.
Yep.
This is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are moments where you have that freedom. Like, you have all your responsibilities squared away. You get like a little bit of free time. Like, I had a little bit of time today to stop for a drink and an ice cream sandwich, and I'm like, yeah, right now I don't have my kid with me. I'm on my own until we're recording the podcast. Life is pretty good right now.
Right. And that can be nice. I mean, there are definitely benefits to being an adult, but I believe at this point that it is less free than when you're a kid. You have these rules from your parents, but at the same time, I mean, at least when we were kids, I was gone most of the time. The only thing I didn't have is money to do what I wanted. And I think that's more what you're looking for when you're a kid. If you could be a kid with the freedom you have, plus have money to do stuff that you wanted to do.
And the ability to drive a vehicle to get places.
Yeah. Then it would be perfect.
Ain't no stopping us.
Nope. But at this point now, the maids are on to the fact that there are mice in the hotel. For sure, there are holes chewed in the linens, and now things are going to get turned up a notch for the mice.
I mean, we don't really see any measures that they take in the book, right? As far as I can recall from the movie, like you see some more mouse traps or poison traps set out. I don't know, Josh, you've watched the movie, but was there a cat?
It's a quick shot of different types of traps that they put down. So it's like it's not a montage because montages are long, but it's real quick shot of just different types of mice traps and putting down poison and stuff like that. Just basically showing what they're doing to try to stop them.
Because I don't think there's really anything Ralph comes across for the whole remainder of this book. Like the family just kind of lies low and that's it.
Well, and I think that's the idea. No, I think they actually mentioned that they're setting out traps and they just need to lie low and not let the traps get triggered and they'll forget about them. They mention traps.
They talk about lying low, but Ralph doesn't come across any.
No, he doesn't.
In his voyage.
No,
later on.
Because this same night, Keith comes back to the hotel and he is clearly ill. He has a raging fever and he just isn't feeling very good at all.
You know, I think did it playing with mice.
Playing with mice, yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, isn't that the question to ask here? He's been playing with mice. Is he washing his hands and stuff? Mouse has been sitting its dirty butt on a motorcycle, and then he's playing with the motorcycle, going down and eating dinner. I mean, coincidence?
Right?
Maybe not.
Sticking his finger in mouse holes and not washing his hands.
Right. So he brings them some peanuts, but he's pretty down and out. He goes to sleep, and later he calls for his mom. His mom comes in, she feels his forehead, and he's definitely got a raging fever. And she wants to get him some aspirin, but turns out Dad took the last aspirin on his way to the hotel because he was driving into the sun and had a headache, and they just forgot to buy more.
This is a conundrum caused by the time period they're in because they can't call anybody because the switchboards are down for the night. There's no places that are open late at night around. Like the front desk doesn't have any. They don't have like vending machines of whatever.
I had a question here. Because the mice mentioned that the hotel is packed. Wouldn't you think that if a child that has a raging fever, if they could maybe ask what are the other people staying at the hotel, I'm sure that a person, even though it's late, they wouldn't be upset because you woke them up because a child is sick.
That seems like a logical thing. Yeah, I would maybe knock on my neighbor's door. Sorry to bother you, but my kid's got a fever and we don't have any aspirin. Can you spare any? Do you have any? As simple as that.
Right.
Don't leave it up to the mice in the hotel.
Maybe that guy with the dog has it.
However, I will say that if you knocked on my door and I had aspirin, I'd say no, and then as soon as you left, I'd take 2 aspirin just to spite you.
Well, that's why you're not Keith.
Yeah.
I mean, Keith, the only time he perks up when he's sick is when he finds out he can still help the mice. He's like, I can help you. And that gives him a little bit of energy, which is nice.
Yeah, because Ralph actually has a plan here. He knows that at one point or another, his dad picked up some aspirin somewhere, put it in his cheek pouches, and ended up dying from it.
He doesn't exactly know how he'll get the aspirin back because his family is freaking out. They're like, oh no, you can't carry it in your cheek pouches, and you can't exactly carry it and run at the same time and everything. Plus he's got the stairs to deal with. But he does start searching the rooms to look for a piece of aspirin. And I don't think they mention it here as being it, but in the movie they definitely make it clear that the reason that there are aspirin anywhere in the hotel where he could possibly find it is because they're using aspirin as a mouse poison. They leave it out for the mice so that the mice will eat it and die. So he ends up searching the upstairs, and he goes in all the rooms except for the one where the dog lives or is staying. And he ends up in the room at the end of the hall, and boom, he gets caught in a drinking glass by a teacher. These two lady teachers are sharing a hotel room, and one wakes the other up. It's Betty and Mary Sue, was it?
Generic lady's name from the 60s, number 2.
Super generic names. So they they talk about possibly keeping him and taking him. Mary Lou, is that you? They end up they talk about keeping him. They talk about taking him back because they'd like to show him to the classes and all this, but then they decide that they've got too much traveling to do beforehand, so they're not gonna do that. They slip a postcard under the glass to catch him, and they drop him out the window onto the vines that are climbing up the side of the hotel, which is actually beneficial for Ralph because he's able to climb down them to get into the ground floor. However, it was a harrowing experience because he could hear an owl nearby.
Does he wind up having a close call with the owl in the movie? Because it's like the danger is out there in the book, but he doesn't really come across any owls. But I seem to remember like he gets almost attacked by an owl.
It swoops down at him.
Okay.
In the movie, they add that little dramatic part.
Yeah. Later on in the book, he's kind of recounting this to his cousins, and he embellishes the danger from the owls. Yeah. But he doesn't really have any run-ins with them.
The window on the first floor is open for him to get in there, and when he gets in, it's a room with a few college guys sleeping, and lo and behold, under the dresser he happens to find an aspirin.
Yay!
Yep. So he rolls it out, he rolls it down to the ashtray on the first floor that's near the elevator, and because he can't get it up the stairs. He tries getting it up the stairs, but there's no way for him to get himself and the aspirin up the stairs. But he actually has an idea at this point. And that idea is going to require Keith to do one last favor for him, and hopefully he's got the strength to do it. So once he gets up to Keith's room, he lets him know, hey, I found some aspirin. I can get it up here, but I'm going to need you to let me borrow the ambulance. And
no, the sports car. He goes for the faster vehicle first.
He did. He went for the sports car first. And Keith is like, no, you already lost the motorcycle. He's like, let me borrow the ambulance then. And he just needs Keith to open the door up for him a little bit so he can get out.
To me, that makes more sense using the ambulance. It is for a medical emergency.
Right.
So to me, it makes more sense that you would use the ambulance.
For sure.
Yeah, but you gotta look stylish and cool when you're doing an errand of mercy.
Right.
Which is Ralph's first inclination.
He ends up using the dog in the room down the hall to his advantage because he remembered that when he was riding the motorcycle a couple nights ago, it woke the dog up, and immediately the owner took the dog outside to go for a walk. And so he uses it he wakes the dog up by driving around by the door, and then he drives in and hides behind the guy as he gets in the elevator so he can get down to the bottom floor with the ambulance, where he's able to drive behind the ashtray and load the aspirin tablet into the back of the ambulance. And then he ends up getting stuck on the way getting back into the elevator, but he gives it a little extra wee and ends up making it in there just in time.
Do you think he can back up? Do you think he can put it in reverse at all?
I wonder.
Because that would have made it a lot easier to get over that bump.
Probably.
Instead of just gunning it, if he would have been able to back up and then get you some momentum, I bet you that would have worked a lot better.
And in a ambulance, if he had known to go beep, 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 I'm pretty sure he would have. But he didn't know that because I don't think that Keith ever made the
magic
sound.
Word to make it go is wee, wee.
Though at that time, wouldn't the ambulance sound like the Echo 1 though? So it wouldn't sound like wee.
I think that Keith sets the sounds. I think that Keith is the one who sets the magic to the sounds.
Keith gets to
Oh,
decide.
that makes sense.
Yep.
I like that theory.
Yep.
I believe that's a good theory. Keith gives the magic sounds to Ralph, who can use it. Nice. Yep. Okay.
So they end up he ends up getting it back to the room, and he leaves the aspirin with Keith. And he is a hero in his mouse hole, and he tells the story of everything that happened, and as Andy said, embellishes a couple parts, but he makes sure to leave out the part about getting trapped under the drinking glass so that his mom doesn't freak out. And Ralph's mother was worried that it wasn't an aspirin tablet, but Keith had put it on the bedside table and wouldn't take it until his mother came in and looked at it. And his mother, they were pretty thinking that he was crazy for saying there was suddenly an aspirin tablet. But then they found it, and they're like, okay. And it worked. It brought his fever down, and he was able to go to sleep.
And then he got a stomach flu because that pill was old and underneath a whatever.
Yeah, who knows how long it was under that dresser. But Mama Mouse is happy because technically the aspirin was a tip for all the room service.
Yep, a favor returned.
So Keith wakes up, he's feeling a lot better, but he still has a little bit of a temperature. And they ask him, do you feel like eating any breakfast? And he's like, oh, I can have room service? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, I'm not really that hungry. But then he remembers. And then, so he says very suddenly, orange juice. Oh, and bacon and toast and jelly. So he's thinking about his friend and his friend's family again.
Yep.
Keith's always thinking about other people.
He is.
Such a good kid. Such a good kid.
Seems like a good kid, for sure. It's no wonder his sounds are magical.
Yeah.
Ralph ends up telling him the story about what happened and still leaves out the part where he gets stuck under the glass. Even with Keith, he won't tell him about that part because I think that was probably the scariest part for him.
He leaves out the part of the story that inspired the story. I think that's really funny.
Right.
He skips the part about the drinking glass, but made it sound as if he had narrowly escaped the horny talons of the owl as he traveled down the vine.
Yep. Matt ends up bringing up the room service, and he also has another little surprise for Keith. He has found the motorcycle, and he returns it. And Keith is pretty happy about this. So is Ralph. He's glad that Keith got his motorcycle back. And as it ties down to the end of it, they play with the cars and stuff for a little bit, or Keith plays with the cars and ate some food, and they end up talking before they're getting ready to leave, and Ralph wishes he could keep the motorcycle, but doesn't ask, and eventually Keith...
Well, they talk about Ralph coming with Keith.
Oh, yep. And then he asks if he would live in, he told him he could live in a nice, comfortable cage, and Ralph's like, would you want to live in a cage?
I mean, it's security, it's safety, but no, Ralph wants the freedom. He wants the excitement and doesn't mind the danger so much anymore, I guess.
Right.
He's been emboldened by his first journey to the first floor, and now is pretty sure he can handle himself.
Right. Yeah, he's kind of grown up now, and he even says, I'll sure hate to see the motorcycle leave. Oh, and you too, of course, he says to Keith.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to miss you too, but the motorcycle.
Yep. And this is the point where Keith offers to let him keep the motorcycle. And he says, I can get allowance. I can buy myself another motorcycle.
But first he has to ask his mom.
Ask his mom what? Oh, yeah. Ralph has to ask his mom if he can keep the motorcycle.
Yeah.
So then they're trying to figure out where to keep the motorcycle. And they go through all these different ideas. And then they figure out... At one point, he's like, what about that big old clock my ancestor ran up? Because he did earlier talk about his ancestor, Hickory Dickory Dock, who lived in a clock, and how he could stand it.
Yeah, because it was so loud.
So they figure out a great place to keep it would be under the television, because it's just high enough for the motorcycle, but not quite high enough for a vacuum cleaner attachment.
Yep.
And so he's allowed to keep it as long as he wears his crash helmet every time he rides it.
Which he's down with, because it makes him feel like a racer to wear the crash helmet. So, Keith is happy because he'll be able to imagine Ralph riding around on the motorcycle, and Ralph is happy because now he has a motorcycle to ride around his hotel in. And I mean, realistically, at some point, if Matt was smart, he'd get a picture of this mouse riding the motorcycle, and then the mice would be safe because everybody would be coming to the hotel to see this mouse riding around on a motorcycle.
You could save the hotel.
Yeah.
And
Oh man, yeah.
out on the sign by the road, it'll say some mouse.
Yep, some mouse.
The Mountain View's famous mouse.
And that's the end of the book. I mean, at the end of the book, Ralph gets the motorcycle. Keith survived the night because he was able to get some aspirin. Lessons were learned. Children grew a little bit older.
Ralph definitely grew up.
Yep, Ralph grew up.
They mentioned how Keith says, I think mice must grow up faster than little boys because Ralph grew so much in this 3-day adventure that he had and Keith, to him it was just, he was sick for a day. Poor kid.
I'm not entirely sure how at risk his life was, but he was definitely not feeling so great because of the fever.
Well, it was the 60s. They didn't have the medical breakthroughs that we had now. I mean, they used aspirin. At this point, they would use like children's acetaminophen or something like that to try to break it.
Also, acetaminophen you can say, but not acetylsilic acid.
Yeah.
Yes, because I say that a lot more.
Because like Louis Tully, Josh does not buy Tylenol. He buys acetaminophen.
I literally do.
I do too. What's the point in buying a Tylenol when you can buy the cheaper acetaminophen?
Right.
Yeah, I don't buy Advil or Motrin. I just buy ibuprofen because it's the exact same thing.
And I mean, I bought aspirin. I don't think I've ever seen it called acetylsalicylic acid. I can't even say it now. I'm adding acetylsalicylic acid or whatever.
Pain reliever.
Pain reliever.
Pain reliever / fever reducer.
I got a fever, and it the only cure is some more cowbell.
And the only prescription is this pill I found underneath the dresser.
So yeah, basically the book ends with Keith falling asleep with a smile on his face, thinking about Ralph riding around, and Ralph just slows it down and parks it, and because he could wait to ride the motorcycle because it was his to keep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And he has further adventures with it in the sequel, Runaway Ralph. Yeah, Runaway Ralph.
I'm betting he goes outside in that one.
We may have to find out in the future.
We may. But
because this was a very solid book.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed
full
it.
of great memories, good amount of whimsy, solid lessons.
It was a really quick read too.
It was. Mm-hmm.
I got through it fairly quickly, but as far as for nostalgia purposes, I would say definitely watch the movie. That gave me a lot more of the feels than the book did. I'm not sure why. I think it's just because of how 80s-rific it is.
With all of the stop motion animation going on, that stuff is kind of fun to see too.
And the voices. You guys don't remember the voices. Trust me, you do not remember the voices.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm definitely going to watch it. I didn't realize it was on Amazon Prime.
Well, we should all watch it before our next talk episode.
Yeah,
we'll
for sure.
Yeah.
This is not the last you've heard of Ralph S. Mouse.
What is it, like an hour-long movie?
45 minutes, I think.
45 minutes?
45 minutes.
It seemed like it was a TV movie, I think, as I remember it.
It probably was.
I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, 45 minutes means that it was an hour with commercials.
Yeah, most likely. But yeah, it takes place in the 60s, and there are definitely remnants of the era, but the lessons, the characterizations of the kids and the young mice and everything, it's pretty timeless.
Absolutely.
So I'd say it holds up pretty well.
And it doesn't feature a bunch of people getting riffed on about their features and how someone's better than other people because of the way people look. And there's no slaves.
Nobody in this story is really a horrible piece of shit either.
Right.
I mean, the least, I don't know about the least friendly, but the most antagonistic people are still being very realistic. It's just mom gets freaked out by mice, and establishment doesn't want mice running around in their hotel.
Right.
So it's not like they're evil. They're just dangerous, or they kind of crush the youthful spirit, I suppose.
Right. I mean, look at Keith got sick from playing with mice. I agree with you. I'm pretty sure that Keith.
I think that's what did it. I don't. He's all of a sudden sick because he's playing with mice that are not properly upkept or cleaned and not pets or anything.
Well, they did say that he was out in the sun for a long time too, so he might have got a little bit of heat stroke or something like that.
You don't get a fever from being out in the sun.
Yeah, you can.
No.
Yes, heat stroke will cause you to have a fever. It elevates your body temperature, which gives you a fever.
This is the 1960s. The sun wasn't as bad back then.
The sun wasn't powerful enough to give you heat stroke in the 60s. Come on, everybody knows the sun is hotter in 2020.
Yes, the sun isn't necessarily hotter, but we're definitely getting more of it.
All them greenhouse gases are keeping the UV inside the atmosphere, and it's definitely more dangerous to be out in the sun these days.
Yeah, but no, I don't think it was because of the sun. I think he got a fever. I agree with Andy. I think he got a fever because he's playing with a dirty ass mouse. This isn't like a little white mouse that you buy from the pet store, and even then you should wash your hands.
Nobody's cleaning the mouse turds out of their knothole.
Yeah.
These mice live in their shit. So yeah, good story.
Good story. Yep.
Yep, I agree.
It was enjoyable. Definitely one I'll share with my kids.
Mm-hmm. If my son ever gets off of the Captain Underpants and Diary of a Wimpy Kid kick and wants to read something else, I'll definitely bring this up to him.
All right, fellas. So what do we got lined up? What do we got in the tube?
Well, this I've started calling them chapters of our podcast because we kind of go in segments of 4 books and a choose your own adventure. So is that kind of a something we're going to run with?
Yeah.
I like that.
This chapter of the podcast is we're making all about women authors. And even though they don't necessarily give us like the female perspective to their characters, like this book was about a little boy and a male child mouse, whatever, it's still coming from the perspective of a woman. So the next book, though, is more geared towards the young ladies out there, because we are going to be breaking into the Babysitters Club series.
Ooh.
And at this point of chapter 1, we were going into Goosebumps, so we're going to keep up the kind of spooky, going to keep that spooky thing going and reading The Ghost at Dawn's House. So we get kind of the best of both worlds next week on ReLiterated.
I'm excited about this. You know, I never thought of it when I was a kid, but we really should have read Babysitters Club books. We might have been able to understand girls better.
It's probably true. Yeah, when we were kids, it was like the boys and girls were brought up differently. I mean, it's kind of dying away now. There's definitely more of a, girls and boys can do whatever they want kind of thing as far as gender norms go, whatever. McDonald's still asks you if you want toys for a boy or a girl with their Happy Meals. And that kind of pisses me off, because right now the boys' toys are Star Wars and the girls' toys are Disney, like Disney princesses or whatever. But I definitely do not agree with keeping Star Wars for boys or Disney for girls or whatever. They should be allowed to have whatever the fuck they want.
Well, and that's where I was going to say, like, yes, I would think that in the circles you run in, there are definitely people being loud right now about how boys and girls should be able to do whatever they want. But, most people that I run into, I think that's one of the, because that's my belief too. I think boys and girls should be able to do whatever they want. If a girl wants to do boy stuff or a boy wants to do girly stuff, whatever. It's just, why are we gendering all these things, right? But
back when we were growing up, we would have been taunted, teased endlessly if we read Babysitters Club books.
For sure. Or if a girl was doing boy stuff, she's a tomboy and this and that. And it was always given like a negative connotation, So I think
not so negative as boys doing girl stuff.
Boys doing girl stuff is definitely
way more acceptable to be a tomboy than a girl or than a boy wearing a dress.
It still had a negative connotation in the fact that nobody nobody expected that girl to meet anybody or anything. Like, they would definitely get this feeling like you're not fitting into the mold of society. At some point, everybody expected girls to switch from tomboy to girl stuff. I mean, when they're young,
it was always a phase that they grew out of.
Yeah, you're going to grow out of this tomboy phase. You're going to become a girly girl, and that's just how it goes. And so,
like Fern.
Yeah, like Fern.
Fern was expected to grow out of her playing with farm animals or whatever.
Right.
And become that child bearer.
And
start getting into boys and stuff.
I mean, we still are going to encounter, I would say that though, the country is kind of like in half about ideals in some ways, I would say that it's more like, there's like a 75, 60 or 75% that still think like, no, it's a girl, it's a boy. This is what you do with them. That's how it goes. And that's why places like McDonald's still have the girl or boy toy, because it's, the majority of people are still saying, no. I'm fine with that. Do whatever you want. But my little girl, my little boy, don't tell me how to do it. And so, what we hear is going to be, kind of your bubble. You think that, hey, things are really changing. But yeah, no, I have no problem with it. I know that Clark is really into trolls, and he loves Princess Poppy, and he has Princess Poppy toys. And by no way do I get him Princess Poppy toys and think, oh no, I wonder, I worry, no, I get him Princess
what
Poppy
the fuck
toys.
Is to worry about?
Yeah, and I'm still in fear of physical danger from that kid. So I mean, it has nothing to do with that. He loves trolls.
He is still a rough and tumble little dude.
Yeah, but he loves Princess Poppy, and he should be allowed to have it.
That's cool.
I don't see any reason why I should be like, oh no, you can't have Princess Poppy. What are people gonna think?
It's more like, yes, Clark, yes, whatever you need. Well, just don't hurt me.
I just give a shit what people think. I do not care. Like, think what you will. Come talk to me if you got a problem with it. But
right. It's like, I don't care what people think, but I do care that they're going to think the wrong thing.
Right.
And attack my boy for doing something they don't like.
Oh, trust me. There is one very large issue that many people believe it is true, and they try to tell everybody it's true. And I can tell you that no one has yet approached my children and tried to tell them that this thing is true without my permission. But the moment someone does, they are going to meet an old version of me that they will not ever want to speak with again. Because I don't think you should be telling little kids things like that. So, but I know that'll happen someday. I know that someday people will tell them, or I've heard people say to Bruce before, oh, you shouldn't do that, that's a girl thing. And I'm like, no, and people tend to leave it alone after you say something to them. But I don't care what someone thinks about me, and I don't want him to feel like he needs to care.
Well, guess what, asshole? It's a boy doing it.
Yeah, it's a boy doing it, so back the fuck off. So, yeah, it's interesting times that we live in, transitional.
Yeah, always seems to be incremental progress.
Yep.
Very incremental. But anyways, we're doing our part, I guess. I don't know. Maybe.
We're trying.
We are.
At any rate, we're reading Babysitter's Club for next week.
Yeah. We are going
to
fumble our way through progress.
No one's going to tell us we can't. This is our show, goddammit.
Yeah.
And read along with us if you like. Pick up a copy of The Babysitter's Club, The Ghost at Dawn's House. I started ordering my books from thriftbooks.com, finding them pretty cheap, and they get there within a few days. We're not sponsored by thriftbooks.com by any means, but just saying, if you're looking for like a physical copy of books, I've been able to find whatever I'm looking for at thriftbooks.com. If I say it one more time, maybe we get a sponsorship.
Maybe.
Thriftbooks.com.
And when you're at
let's send them an email.
If you're looking at thriftbooks.com, why not do it with a cup of soup?
Right.
Yeah.
Because cup of soup is delicious. You just add hot water and you got a cup of soup.
I mean, if we're just throwing it out there, Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest thing to eat while reading, even though they may stick to your fingers a little bit. You can use it to turn the page. So, Reese's peanut butter cups, best thing to eat while reading.
Please sponsor us, somebody.
And whatever you're looking for, you can also find on Amazon.com. They've got the deepest pockets ever.
Well, all right.
Anyways.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been using my library, and it has gone almost all digital now. So I don't have a physical library card, but everything that we've read, I've been able to get at the library.
Your library ain't sponsoring
Yes.
us. Ain't no library sponsoring us. Shut the fuck up.
No, we're sponsoring the library.
Yo,
Use your local library.
I'm all for being a patron of your local library. My mom works for a library. My mom is a librarian. Go to your library, use their resources. You won't be disappointed.
Hey, they use your tax dollars, so
I agree.
right there.
Libraries are good. I'm just saying. This was a sponsorship boom.
They're always out there working towards child literacy, getting kids reading and everything, making sure that resources are available for the enlightenment of the human race.
Yeah, Pizza Hut can't do it all.
Pizza Hut can't do it all.
Does Pizza Hut
And
still
they
do
don't-
it at all?
That's a book it.
I don't
That's
think
a
they
book
do
it
have the book
reference.
it anymore. Right.
I think they do. I'm pretty sure they still have book it.
Really?
I'll have to
Huh.
look
I'm
into
almost
it.
positive.
Anyways, we'll look into that.
Yeah.
We'll Bing it.
But-
We'll Bing it. Don't worry.
We'll Bing it.
Yeah, Bing
we'll
it.
Bing it. Bing.com. So let's bring this episode to a close before we step on any corporate toes any harder. Thank you for listening to ReLiterated. We are the Chocolate Milk Friends. If you enjoyed this show, please share it with your friends and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podbean, Google Podcasts, or any podcast app that pulls from these sources. And give us reviews, give us ratings. Let the world know how much you enjoy listening to us. Give us some stars if we be friends.
Speaking of the world, special shout out to our international listeners.
Yeah, we are able to see some statistics on our hosting platform, and we have some listeners. We have one in Argentina, one in Poland, one in Austria. I don't know if you're just Americans using VPNs or if you're actually in those places, but hola.
Other
Hello.
hellos.
Hello.
Hello in other languages.
Polish hello. I am a stupid American.
Thank you for listening.
Who doesn't know every language. Yeah. Until next time, give a shit, read some lit.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Or whatever time of the day it is for you.
Thanks.